Well, hello everyone. Episode 21. You've arrived to the RSS podcast. First
What's
of
up,
all,
fam?
I just want to say what a guest we've got coming along. I mean, it's a Sheffield United women's player, David. Let's go. Love a bit of professional sport. With RSS
The
podcast is
RSS is
reaching new
going big
heights,
time.
right?
And
Yeah.
it was a
I
banger
mean,
of
in
an
that and
interview,
with that
wasn't it?
interview, it is. Oh, it was amazing, David. And basically, we talk about juggling professional sport with a master's and in women's football. We talk about the struggles that can bring, not being a full-time athlete. I mean, we just talk about so many stuff, and we only get to scratch a little bit of the surface with the injuries. So there might be a part two coming up. Depends how much you guys all enjoy it. And David,
There
I
needs
think
to
you've
be.
got a tweet of the week. There you go. I
Tweet of the
think you've
week
got a
as
bit of
well.
Twitter
Yeah, yeah.
insight as well.
Second tweet of the week. We've got a question, and this is the question was: what is one thing you wish you knew at the start of your PhD? We got bare replies, and some of them are just for PhD students, but I think others, we'll talk about it a little bit, I think can go beyond that. If it's new job, new environment, new school, new degree. So we'll jump into that straight after as well. We're so excited about this episode.
Hey guys, episode 21. Let's jump in. Guess who remembered what they were going to say, David? Guess who
That was
remembered what
that
they were
was
going to
that
say?
was my bad.
What
I
I was
just
going to
hit
say
that
was,
premature.
right, um, we got humbled. So I'd like to start this video by saying I am very sorry for my lack of knowing everything in S&C as a person who's just started out. Not like I was affected by this, but didn't hurt my feelings at all. Not like I don't read those comments every single second of my life right now, but that's all right.
Oh, it was hilarious. You know what? I have a little bit of blame as well, and we'll get it. So if you watched last week's episode, we talked about a deadlift, which we thought just looked ridiculous, didn't we? And I
Hold
and
up,
I
hold up.
brought it.
I still want to point out, sorry, I still want to point out, it is still ridiculous. There may be some scientific value that I have not seen yet, right? I'll double down because there may be some actual like scientific principles that are being used that maybe I just haven't learned yet as I've just started. But can still say it does look ridiculous because it does look ridiculous, but it could
It does
still
look
be
ridiculous.
working. Even though the guy's a world champion, fair play. All respect to you, amazing
Yeah. So
athlete.
that's
I just
on me. That's basically we just made fun of this person on Instagram, which probably we should have done our background. And I just fed you this video without any context. Turns out this guy, and this is where we should have known who it was, done a bit of background, noticed that he's a world record breaker, Olympic champion, world champion, probably the fastest human to do the 400-meter hurdles in the world. Right, Carson Warholm. I'm hoping I say his name right. And here's the thing.
you've
It's a funny.
get him. Get in comments. He's pronounced
Here's the thing.
name
Last
wrong.
time I
Get
said
him.
here's the thing,
Get
we
him.
got absolutely smoked on Instagram. That's the first time I've actually deleted a comment because it was just ridiculous. The first time. Yeah. But anyways, here's the thing.
I'd like to point out.
Yeah.
Yeah, carry on,
Go
carry on.
ahead. No, you go. You go.
I was just going to say that who thought that actually having context surrounding a video would be a good idea?
Probably. Who knows? Well, I think the first podcast we said was like be critical of things, and we just saw something.
Oh
Like,
yeah. Ridiculous. Silly. Makes no sense.
yeah.
But hey.
Yeah, and yeah. So we should give him credit. He's good at what he does, and there's a reason for that. Now I don't know, after knowing that the person actually is a world champion, do you change your mind on the exercise? If people didn't watch it, just go onto our Instagram. There's just a clip on there of it, and you can see the little bit of a brief that we talked about, or YouTube, it's on there as well. So if you don't know what we're talking about, go there and you will know what we're talking about. But do you change your mind on the
No.
exercise?
Like I will happily have an open conversation with someone to discuss why I am wrong or why they believe that exercise is great. Because at the end of the day, if there is great scientific evidence or not even to an extent anecdotal, but like if it is working, you can't just say, oh, because he's doing that exercise, that's what's made him the world champion and the fastest 400-meter run ever, because that doesn't make sense. Obviously, there's a multitude of factors, but if I'd like to actually genuinely find out. So instead of just saying that you will hate me, maybe just have a conversation with me.
Yeah. And I think maybe it's
But
also
yeah,
important to know that this person's a world champion. So it's not like he just went into the gym and started lifting this weight this way. I had a good conversation with a S&C coach who's very involved and high up in British athletics, and maybe we can get on the podcast. That'd be amazing. So I'll have to have a chat with him. But he said he actually said that he doesn't. I don't know if I should say all of this because maybe he should come on the podcast and say it as well. But I'll say a little bit. He said he doesn't
we'll
actually know how
leave
much
it.
risk.
We'll tease it. We'll tease it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I
Okay,
just
sounds
stopped you at
good.
the right time as well.
I know you
Oh,
did. You did. You did. We didn't plan that either, but yeah, I think you are the same as me. We stepped into a bit of a pot of hot coals with that one. Just not doing our due diligence and knowing the context around the video. That was, you know what? Know a little, learn a lot. That's the motto of the RSS podcast in February. Know a little, learn a lot. Keep your eyes open.
there you
Keep
go.
your eyes on the prize. But hey, it was an
No,
eventful 24 hours on the Instagram of the RSS podcast.
it
So
was.
yeah,
It was very
yeah.
interesting. Speaking of knowing and learning, David, what did you know and learn on Twitter today? Not today, but
Oh,
the
tweet
past
of the
week.
week. I hope we can keep these going because they're quite good. I tweeted out, what is the one thing you wish you knew at the start of your PhD? And I got some good responses. As usual, got some funny ones as well. One guy said that he said, I wish I wouldn't have started it, that I would fail. One person said, I wish I knew the quantum field theory at the start of my PhD.
Oh,
That
mate,
gave me
tell
a
him he can
headache.
drop me a message. I know all about that stuff.
Yeah, I'll let him
Pneumothorax,
know.
quantum field theory. I know it all, mate.
Yeah, breakfast. See, that's what you talk about before you do your morning Sudoku. Can't even say it.
Call him. Yeah. But yeah,
You
what
said
else? What were the other
pneumothorax though
responses?
very well there, so that's good. But
I know.
I got some good ones. Stress management is a good one. And we talk a little bit about managing stress expectations on yourself in the interview. So make sure you stick
Yeah,
around because that's coming up literally right after this.
100%.
Perfection is the enemy of good. I thought that was good. Perfection is the enemy of good. It's so
Yeah.
interesting because I
Yep.
think we can
Sorry.
get caught in perfectionism, but I think it's also a slippery slope of just being like, oh, like I don't want to be a perfectionist and then just doing mediocre work
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well.
You should always strive. Yeah, you should always strive for perfection in a way.
Yeah. But I guess when at what point does that become detrimental is the question you have to ask yourself. My phone just turned off. Here you go. Oh no, I got to get back to the tweet. Here it is. um, this was good. 3 years is not a lot of time, and I think surface level that kind of just relates to a PhD, but maybe like new job if you're getting into a new environment or maybe starting a new degree, whatever it is. I think you just don't know how long you're going to be there for, and I think that time just goes so quickly. So like we've talked about it before of like not wasting time and just getting the most out of the situation that you're in. And I think multiple people said that. Uh, so
Multi
I, there's
people.
one there
Multiple.
was one really good one that I'm gonna find um, that I wanted to just here we go. This is good. The importance of finding your people, the ones who really understand what the experience is like, allow you to vent, lean on them, etc. When the journey becomes quite challenging. I found these people, but I wish I had them earlier on. That's some deep wisdom there, isn't it?
Bloody hell. I mean, you just saw me just peer off into the darkness of sadness just thinking about, yeah, that is
How
quite
alone
deep
you are in
actually.
Ken.
Blimmin' hell.
That's such a good. I think we take the people around us so for granted sometimes, but I think
For
finding that
granted.
support
Oh,
network of people that you can vent to is just so important.
100%. And I mean, this is a hell of a transition. Venting to people. Talk about venting to people, right? That interview that you guys are going to listen to right now, we went through everything about finding the great people that you can rely on. What do you look for in a coach? Like, what should a coach be? So that was a great experience as an S&C coach just starting, hearing a player
Yeah.
actually talk about the experiences she's had with S&C coaches or head coach, technical staff, physio staff. It was a great conversation. And we also talk about the struggles of trying to balance everything on one go. So it was one great conversation. I'll tell you what, it's a part one of a three-parter, I think. It's just
We
amazing.
can't wait to get this person back on the podcast. Hopefully we can shoot some content with her as well. Honestly, it was such a great conversation.
100%.
I have a whole like page and a half of notes that I took off of it. It's such a
Yeah.
quality interview, and we really appreciate her coming onto the podcast. So without further ado, should we jump in?
Yes, David, let's go. Here we go. Episode 21.
Nice. I'll start
There you go,
that
the
there. That's
music.
perfect.
Sweet.
We are so excited to introduce our third guest on the Real Sports Science podcast, Ellie Wilson. She just finished her Master's of Musculoskeletal Sports Science and Health, also at Loughborough University, where I had the pleasure of getting to know her there. She's got several promotions to the FA WSL League number 1 and currently plays for Sheffield United, where she's been since July 2020. I hope I got that all right. She's also a sports massage therapist. Get into that a little bit as well. But welcome to the podcast, Ellie. Thank you so much for coming on. We really, really appreciate it. How are you doing today?
Yeah, really good, thank you. Thanks for having me on, as always.
We finally figured out there was an absolute abundance of technical issues, but we're here, we're in, and hopefully it doesn't cut out. So although I did that unbelievable intro, which I'm sure touched on every single aspect of your career, if you could give us a bit of a more Cole's note of your progression, how you've gotten to where you are now, kind of academic and also in your football career, that would be unbelievable.
Yeah, sure. So I've always sort of valued like my academic studies alongside my playing career as well. I'm not too sure where that came from, but from a young age, I just felt like that was important. So yeah, I did. I was playing for Reading Football Club, which was where I first got scouted. Obviously down south. So I trialled for about 4 years before I actually got into the academy. And I think during that time developed my sort of passion for the game, and repeatedly being told that I wasn't good enough, eventually ended up getting in. So started my career down there at Reading, progressed through their youth setup. I then went to college at the John Medeski Academy, which was affiliated with Reading Football Club. Did my A-levels there. During that time, I then got my first England call-up, which was obviously a big moment for me. I wanted to go to America actually at the time to continue my studies like for university. But once I got the call up for England, I kind of thought I wanted to go to the States to better myself as a player so that I could get into the international setup. But once I got the call up, I kind of thought it might pay to stay in the UK and carry on playing here. So I went to uni, which was again affiliated with Reading Football Club. I went to Buxton Uni in High Wycombe. At the same time as transferring to Bristol City. So that's where I continued playing my football for a couple of years. We got promoted with Reading, so just before I left Reading, that was my first promotion. Then during my time at Bristol City, we got promoted to the WSL as well. And then I took a 2-year gap out of studying after I did my undergrad in sports science, during which time I was playing for Barnet. So I had 2 years out while I was just playing football. I was only playing part-time. I needed a break from studying. And then I got bored of not studying, so I came back and did a Master's at Loughborough and tied that in for signing for Sheffield United. So that's pretty much my life since I started playing football. Obviously met you, David, at uni at that time. And I've been at Sheffield United since 2020, which was when I started my Master's. So, yeah, happy days, moved up to the north.
I mean, I guess it's almost 3 years ago now, but it feels like ages ago. That's actually crazy that it's been through, not like coming up on 3 years, I suppose, in September. July since you've been in Sheffield. How was that?
Yeah, it's crazy. The time's just flown. Like when I just felt like something was right, the right time to move to Sheff. And I moved to Loughborough to live at that time to tie it in with uni. And I've ended up living in Sheff, but it still doesn't feel like that was 3 years ago. It was only going to be a 1-year master's, but anyway, I won't touch on that.
Yeah, how did that? Get into that a little bit more later.
Yeah.
How was that? I mean, Matt, we could be here for hours speaking to you about Masters, women's football, your involvement with the Blades, injuries, because you haven't had an easy time with that over the last few years, for sure, with concussions and then ACL tear as well. But one thing, you've been all over the place with football and has in a lot of transitions. Was that difficult? Or did that kind of fuel your motivation to keep going with football? Or were there points where you're like, oh, like another move? Do I really want to go through that to continue?
I think it's more exciting, really. I was actually speaking to one of my mates that plays the other day, and it's quite cool that in the profession of football, whether you're a player or somebody who just works in the sport, like the sport can literally take you anywhere. That could be in the country, it could be anywhere in the world. It's quite a luxury in that sense. And if you're somewhere where you're enjoying it, it doesn't really feel like work, or, the only difficult thing is that you're obviously moving away from home, moving away from family, friends, and especially in the women's game, it's quite... it's not very secure at times. So you only have short-term contracts, like a year long, 2 years. So you don't really know where you're going to be 1 year to the next, which that side of it can be a bit difficult. But it's also quite exciting. It's challenging, keeps you on your toes. Like you're always, thinking about what your next move is. But for me, since I've been at Sheffield, I've probably found a home here and just really taken to the north and like the city and the club and everything as a whole. So yeah, that's quite nice as well when you find yourself like comfortable in one spot.
Yeah. Well, that's huge.
Sorry if I could just chime in a bit. I was just wondering how, like, the stresses though, because I just did a master's, and for that 1 year I was incredibly stressful, and that was without like trying to do rugby on the side. I can't imagine trying to do anything academic as well as being sort of like a full-time athlete as well, because I mean there's massive stresses in both of those aspects, and I was just wondering how do you manage it?
Yeah, I mean, I won't be taking on another master's anytime soon, put it that way. But yeah, it's hard. Like, it is hard. I mean, it's also from a football point of view, Sheffield United and a lot of the clubs I've been at have been part-time. So it does give you a little bit more time to do other things, whether that's working, studying, or whatever you're doing.
But then, like...
But yeah, it is. Like, I started that 1 year course, and I've ended up spreading it over 3 years purely because of, like you say, that time commitment and stress that comes with it. Like, it is difficult.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people say, like part-time athlete, but I don't think there is such a thing as a part-time athlete, because you got to make the training sessions, and then it's hard to say if you've had a training session which has just been in a high-pressure environment, and you're trying to make selection. At what point, is it that difficult to turn off the mindset of just constantly thinking about selection, constantly thinking about game day, when you've got to prepare for exams or a bit of coursework? I feel like there is no such thing as part-time athlete. It's always full-time because it's always on your mind.
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree with that, to be fair. The only thing that makes it part-time is like the pay side of it. So with that then comes a commitment to, you have to go and work, obviously, like you've got bills and stuff to pay. But in terms of your commitment as an athlete and expectations on you in terms of like 24-hour athlete, you've got your commitments to the gym, like your nutrition, sleep, things like that. I don't think there is anything as such as a part-time athlete, because it is 24/7. So like, you can't, I found it most difficult recently being up to stupid o'clock in the morning, finishing a dissertation, knowing that I'll be fine the next day, but I'm then going to be on the training pitch until like 9-10 p.m. at night the following day, like on 3 or 4 hours sleep. That's just ridiculous. Like, and the club, it's good that the clubs can now work with you to factor that in, if you like. Like, if I am absolutely shattered, I'll let the staff know, and I'm not expecting an awful lot from myself in that sense. But if it's at a time where you're competing for a shirt, for example, that's difficult, because yes, I really want my shirt and that's a priority for me, but I also have a deadline. So it's just a case of weighing up your priorities throughout your career, like whether that's work versus football, studies versus football, whatever it is,
Yeah,
it is.
I guess like
juggling act though.
Managing
that's
those
expectations.
100%, so I guess with that, like how how did you manage expectations of, firstly, of yourself, and expectations then externally from whether it's masters or from the club? How did you manage those, and what did you do when those expectations weren't met, whether for like
So,
yourself, your expectations, or from other people?
so I think the most important expectations from my experience are the ones that you have of yourself, because they need to be realistic. You're the one that has to deliver, whether that be on the pitch or academically, whatever environment you're in. And the biggest thing for me, like we said, is it literally is a juggling act. So just prioritising what's the most important at that moment in time. 9 times out of 10, it's football. So if I'm meant to be working on a weekend, or if I was looking at another job or something, and that was going to clash with football, straight away, it's just a no-go, like it cuts off your options. But in terms of studying, I just tend to kind of prioritise, even just on a daily basis, like if I need to be up late, but I've got training the next day, how close is my deadline? Can I afford to be a bit tired for training on that day, or do I absolutely need to get this work done? Like things like that. And I think in terms of the club's involvement in that, the only time they've ever really been involved is probably where my own expectations or my own prioritization is shifting more towards something that isn't football. So if I'm all of a sudden prioritizing like my studies and staying up late and making sure I can get it done, then that might cost me on the training pitch. And if I know that that's happening, or I know that that's going to be a thing, or I'm going to be really tired or whatever, then it's important for me to let the staff know. Like if I am underperforming, then instead of them going, oh, why is Ellie playing rubbish today, or what's going on with her, or whatever, they might realise, actually, okay, she's probably been up till 4 a.m. doing a dissertation, so maybe cut some slack. Do you know what I mean? But you've got to be open and honest and have those conversations. And then they're not very frequent, because football is the priority for me. So anything else that clashes with football tends to get disregarded, because that is, like I say, my priority, unless there's something that's really pressing, like a dissertation deadline. For about a week's period, I was kind of like, do you know what, I'm going to have to just cut myself some slack on the training pitch and just let everyone know that's where I'm at this week, and it is what it is. If I'm selected, I'm selected. If I'm not, then I'm not. So that was the important thing at that moment in time.
Just to add a question on the back of that, are there players within the club that are full time? So are they paid full time?
Not at Sheffield United, no. Some clubs in our division have like a hybrid model, so some will be paid full time, others won't be. But the majority of the teams in our league are now full time, so that's their main occupation.
Yeah, I was just wondering in terms of, because that would be another detrimental factor that would be playing on any player's mind. I've got to fight for a jersey, and I think there is some teams, even in rugby, where there is that hybrid model, and it makes it difficult because if people are working, say, a job on the side, then they're also going uni, or they've also got to play a sport, and then someone else is just full-time, that's their whole role. It's just, how do you compete with that? When, I just find it a bit of a hectic situation, mentally and physically, to put your body through. And no,
it definitely is stressful. Like the week that my dissertation was due in is probably a perfect example of all things going on at the same time. Like I've got a dis due in, I'm on top of it, but I know that for a fact that I work better at night, so that doesn't help me because I know I'm not going to get as much sleep. But during that time, I was also trying to win my shirt back, and I was kind of on the verge of it. So it was really important for me to be on top of that pitch performance side of things. I knew I needed to get sleep, recover, eat, whatever, and perform well. But I also knew that off the pitch, I wasn't giving myself the best opportunity to do that, because I knew I had other things going on, like outside. So if that's work, uni, whatever, I knew that I had other things that I needed to focus on. And at that moment in time, when my deadline's on a Thursday for my university work, then that has to take priority, because that deadline isn't going to shift. If I miss one game or I don't get selected for this one game, I'll go again next week, but I can't do my dissertation the following week. So it doesn't happen very often, but it is a constant juggling act.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable. I don't think I could ever be able to do that. So yeah,
it's crazy because a lot of the whenever I've been in the gym with the academy lads, they're if we say, oh, I'm off to work or can't stick about or whatever, they kind of look at you like, work, like what?
Yeah,
I was like, yeah, no, I've got to go to work this afternoon. They're like, what do you mean work? Like they're going home to play FIFA and chill out until they have training the next day.
Yeah,
and that whole concept to them, it just seems alien. And I'm sure that's not all cases for lads training and playing at academies, but yeah, when you're working like multiple jobs and studying and playing, this is like constant.
Yeah, because it doesn't allow you to actually recover fully, I'd say, because you're reducing your sleep. Your sleeping schedule, as you said, is going all over the place. Instead of going, say, doing recovery or rehab sort of things, you've got other stuff on your mind and well to be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds a
Yeah.
lot like the conversation we had last week, Matt, about people trying to jump into CrossFit and training like the pros, but they
Yeah.
forget that they've got 9 to 5 jobs as well. But then you're
Mhm.
doing the 9 to 5 job and also having to compete at a very, very high level.
Yeah, and that's the thing
So-
that's been difficult. It's like the expectation on us as athletes is increasing every season, and rightly so. That's a good thing, but the expectation doesn't always match what you're like the resources that you're given in return in terms of like being able to be a full-time athlete and not having to work. So it's like we're constantly under the pressure of going like this, but our own expectations and pressures are also increasing as well. So it's kind of like something's got to give. Whereas if you're just full time, you just, like you say, you just focus 100% on your football, and that's that. So
Yeah,
we'll see.
You mentioned that you kind of that communication was key. That you needed to have those conversations of being like, hey, this is where I'm at because at this time I have this priority outside of football, like your thesis due in 3 nights. How did you build those relationships and that trust for them to know that you would come to them and be open with them, and that you're not just like you're skiving or something like that, because that definitely takes a lot of trust on your part to know that they're going to take that and be like, this isn't me saying I don't care about football, like that's a big step on your part. How did you get to that point?
I've never really thought about that, to be fair, but I think it's important for the clubs to like encourage players to have other like vocations and interests and things anyway, particularly when you are a part-time model. They can't kind of close off those doors to you because, one, you're not going to play football forever. Everybody knows that anyway. And two, it's important to have other things as a backup anyway. So, even if you are in a full-time role earning loads of money and blah, 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 as a top-level pro, you could get injured tomorrow, and that could be that. So, like, what else are you doing? So the clubs always encourage you to kind of branch out into other areas. But I think in terms of how I approach those conversations from my point of view, once I know that the club encourages that as well, they'll see that as a positive. I'm studying, and they'll see it as a positive that I'm doing other work and things like that. As long as it doesn't conflict all the time, which it doesn't. I think when I combine that with the fact that I work hard at all times, like I pride myself on my work rate and putting 100% in. Like I'm first in the training ground and I'm last out 9 times out of 10. I know it sounds really cliche, but I literally am. So I know that I've kind of built up a bit of credibility in that sense. And if I need to take a day off or I need to do X, Y, Z to prioritise something that's not football, I'd like to think that I can be granted that opportunity because they know that it's not me skiving because I've already proven my commitment to the club and my commitment to the role of being an athlete, if that makes sense.
Do you think that's a big reason why you've come to feel so at home in Sheffield and in the club? Because you can have that conversation, that they don't see that as a negative and they trust you?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. It's just about building good relationships with the people you work with, whether that's your teammates or staff or head coach, whatever. The head coach at the time, Neil Redfern, he was very kind of approachable and really good in terms of like man management. So if you ever have any issues, whatever it is, on or off pitch stuff, I knew that I could go and air it to him or get his advice or whatever. And that kind of helps as well. So when you have those good relationships, it means you can have honest conversations. And, if I'm one of those people that is in the gym doing the bare minimum all the time and just kind of doing a little bit and then heading off home, when I ask for a bit of time off, they might be a bit like, can she just not be bothered or what? So I just try and make sure that whenever I am in, I just give absolutely 100%. And hopefully when I do occasionally need something, like that can be accommodated for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point as, someone who's striving to be an S&C coach, or you look at physios, that there's not just a role of trying to increase or enhance an athlete's physical performance. You've also got to be sort of the psychologist in a way, or be their friend. You've got to ask the questions. You've got to pick up on these different sort of signals that you're getting sent. And you've got to go out of your way and go out of your role, responsibilities wise, to reach out to that player to make sure that you're also there as a friend and also there to be someone that they can trust and also be comfortable with. So it's not always you're trying to make an environment that's just there to, let's lift weights, let's beat our scores, let's strive for elite or strive for professionalism. You've got to also make the environment nice and comfortable where the player can actually be themselves and reach out if they do need help, because at the end of the day that could be a massive detrimental factor in actually getting the athlete where they need to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I think on an individual level, everyone's been in positions where they've worked with people or a colleague or a boss or something that's been really, really good and effective, and everyone's been in a situation where people just don't click. And I think for me, coming into Sheffield United, I've just really found an environment that suits me. Like, I'll get on well with all the staff, I get on well with all the players, somewhere that you want to be, and that comes from also the people around you. If you feel valued in an environment, then you're going to put more into it and probably get more out of it as well. So it's kind of give and take in that sense. And I think as I've got a bit older, kind of realised the importance of having those relationships with the people around me, because ultimately you're all there on the same role, like to help each other. So the more honest you can be, the better your results as a group as well as individuals.
And having a staff or an environment at a club where you do feel like that you can get the help you need at any certain point in time, or you got the sort of teammates that will get you through, and having that sort of, I don't know what to say, where everything's sort of firing on all cylinders at the same time and it's all working well. Have you seen like a positive effect on, yourself physically, mentally, and all sort of aspects? Are you enjoying football a whole lot more now?
Yeah, no, 100%. When I first signed for Sheffield United, we were very much of the thought that we wanted to get promoted that season. And to me, that was just like exactly what I wanted as well. So I felt like I was coming into an environment that was motivated, it was hungry, everybody was on the same page, high intensity all the time, work ethic was on point, and we all had a very a common goal that was a massive goal as well. So coming into that environment, I just felt like I slotted in straight away because, like I say, it was just a perfect match. But then as things progressed, you obviously find yourself in different situations, like as a player, as a person. I ended up getting injured that season, so that again came as another big barrier. And my battles then became working with more of the medical team and the off-pitch stuff rather than, the performance of going out and winning every game because we want to get promoted. Like my take on it kind of twisted a little bit because of where I was at. But then those relationships and things are still just as important. It just might be in a slightly different way or with different individuals with a different goal.
I think you have such a unique perspective as an athlete coming from an academic background, and also working within sport outside. So I know right now you're working as a sports massage therapist in a clinic, right? And then before that, you're working kind of as a trainer in a gym as well. So you have that unique perspective of having both sides of the picture. For you, when you think of what makes a good trainer, especially in the environments that you're in, where it's not like full-time football and you can't just go 100%, you have to take all these different external environment factors into account. What's important for you to see in a trainer or a coach or physio that says, yeah, this person, I'm going to trust this person, or I know this person has the best for me in store and just doesn't want to hammer me home? What makes you kind of buy into what a trainer is saying because of what they do?
I think the most important thing is that trainer, say trainer, like I'm copying your your dialect now, your coach
yeah, nice,
or whatever. Your coach or your gaffer, that they basically value you. I genuinely think that is the most important variable factor, whatever you want to say, because I just think if you're going into an environment, no matter where you're at as an individual athlete, where you're at in terms of your own personal goals as a group, whatever it is, I just think that if you don't feel valued in that environment, you're not going to get the most out of that person. And that includes whether that person is an injured player, whether that person is a starting player, whether that person is a sub that could be coming into the game. But biggest things, basics like acknowledging people, asking people how the day's been, showing that you actually have a genuine interest in them as a person. I think that just comes first and foremost, because all the football side of things, sport is it can be quite cutthroat. And it's never a reflection on people or individuals. Well, rarely, you know, everyone wants to win a game, and that's kind of people's primary motive in terms of the decisions that they make. So in order to not take those things personally, you have to have good relationships with people as people, if that makes sense. So I just think if you've got a good culture and a good environment, then that says to the athlete, yeah, do you know what? I trust you. I trust that you actually have my best interests at heart. If I ask you a question, are you going to be willing to help me? Are you able to help me? Things like that. And then it allows you to then have more honest conversations. I can go to the S&C coach and be like, hey, can I look at my GPS data? Where do I need to improve? Can you give me some ideas of what I can do? Or medically, is there something else I need to address? Can I go and ask the staff that and know that they're going to help me and have my best interests at heart? And I think once you've got those underlying relationships, then it makes like other conversations a lot easier going forwards, no matter how the season's going.
I think that's like every time I speak to someone who's in an elite environment as an S&C coach who's just starting on their career and looks to, you know, strives to be in the elite environment in the future, it's just the greatest opportunity to be able to speak to these people, players, and just understand what they want for an S&C coach. Because obviously you want the S&C coach to have the knowledge to be able to safely prescribe exercises, to program effectively, to get you where you need to go, in terms of your like aims set by the technical coaches. But yeah, you want them to also be a human being as well. And it is lovely to hear, you know, your side of things and what you want to see in a coach. And especially, as David said earlier, you've got a unique perspective where you've got both of the fields, both of the environments. So it is interesting, and a great point of view. Yeah, you just want them to be human beings, just to be able to talk to them sometimes. And I guess the other thing is to have honesty within them.
Yeah.
You don't want just to ask them and then they give you some answer that they were told by the coaches, you know, like a fake answer that doesn't really help you in any sort of way. So say like if you're saying like, oh, why wasn't I selected? Was it because of anything that I could have been doing in the gym? And they give you no, they just give you the same response that the 5 other people within that team would have given. So yeah, I think honesty is a massively big part of it, and I've heard it from other players as well.
Yeah, I'd agree with that massively as well. Probably put that joint top, if not second, because I just think for me as a person, I'm somebody who wants the honest answer as well. And I can't even count the amount of times that I've gone to people, staff, teammates or whatever and been like, look, I don't care if it's an answer that you know I'm not going to want to hear. I would rather know it and it be the honest one. If I'm not starting because I've trained horrendously all week, that's fine. That's on me. Or it's your opinion. It's one or the other. But at least we have an honest platform as to what the answer is, rather than saying, oh, you're not playing because you're not fit enough, or you're not playing because XYZ's performed better when, you know, they haven't, or whatever. Like, just be honest. And I think that comes into the whole, you know, generating like a good culture and just being decent humans and decent people to each other. Like, yes, you might be my boss or I might be your boss or clinician or whatever it is, but if you can get on with people and you're quite personable in that sense, and vice versa, then yeah, you've got the foundings of a good relationship in a professional sense, and you can have these honest conversations and it not be an issue. Like a couple of times there might be something medically, like David obviously said, I've had, you know, injuries with ACL, concussion and things like that. We're gonna need a whole
another
story,
episode. It's a series, so we could get into that.
Yeah, it absolutely is a series. But those sorts of I've had quite complex injuries as well, and I think for me, knowing that the clinicians and the people I'm working with have my interests at heart has been massively important. Me trusting their abilities and judgment as, you know, a doc or a physio or an S&C or whatever it is also important. But also just people being able to say, do you know what, I'm actually not sure. Like, if that's not worked, we've tried this, we've tried that. If you don't know, then it's absolutely fine. Just don't kind of like make it out to me like, oh, I think it's XYZ. It's like, if you don't know, that's absolutely fine, but let's go and seek out extra help from elsewhere. Like, again, it just comes under that honesty umbrella. Like, if you're not sure on something, or why an athlete's underperforming, or why this lift isn't working for them, or why an injury keeps reoccurring, if you don't know the answers, it's fine. Just be honest about it, and be honest about it with the athlete, and go and find the right help so you can fix it, you know? I think that's just important as well.
That's such a good point. Yeah, it's so true. It's interesting that everything just kind of seems to circle back to culture and building relationships, whether that's at like a club level or a professional level, full-time, part-time. It all comes back to that. And how's that been? Because you had got obviously staffing changes this year as well, football-wise. New coach, manager, I'm not exactly sure what the correct term to use in this country is. But how's that been? Obviously, like within the dynamic of the team, because that's a big change, and also then having new people come in with culture shifts as well.
Yeah, sure. It's like it can be a good thing, can be a negative thing. Like, you know, for individuals it'll be different because everyone works differently with people. But I was like, when there's a first change, I think everyone from a footballing point of view thinks, oh, my shirt's up for grabs here. You know, like a new face has come in, a new boss, whatever. I've got to impress. So you always notice a big spike in kind of the intensity of training, things like that. Because people are just being really competitive and want to prove that they should be starting on a weekend, which is completely natural. But yeah, it's just about getting that culture right. And I think as long as whoever comes in, be it male, female, whoever, has goals and standards that they want to kind of get across and can create the culture that they'd like, it's just a case of people then buying into it and just moving forward.
And has there been buy-in? Do you have a new coach now?
We have interim coach at the minute, so they're still looking to sort of appoint full time. But it's a difficult point in the season because we've only got sort of 3 months left of this year. So yeah, it's a bit of a difficult one. But
that interim one, were they already in the organization?
Yeah, so he'd worked with us previously under the previous manager as well, so quite a familiar face, which is a good thing. And you know, it's just about getting results for us at this point because we've not been doing too great on recent results. So we just need to shift a few things, and it kind of gives a new energy. Someone else coming in, different philosophies, different way of playing, different opinions. So yeah, it's something to adapt to. It is it can be difficult as players. If you're in, then you're out, etc. But yeah, we've just got to see what happens. It can be quite an uncertain time because, like I say, the guy we've got currently is interim, so we don't know how long. We've just got to take each week as it comes, really.
Right.
But yeah.
And then do you have sort of different values and beliefs getting thrown around now because of the new change in dynamic, or, you know, is it still that you want to keep on playing at the highest level? Are there different values where, I don't know, like has the team or environment changed a bit now that there's an interim coach, or is everything still a bit foggy?
Be honest, it's probably still a bit up in the air, but that's probably more from things being a bit uncertain. So our previous manager left around, when was it now? End of November, maybe. So it's not been like a quick changeover.
Yeah.
And you kind of feel like everybody, staff included, will feel like we're going one week to the next. So that can be a good thing because you're not really focusing too far on what's coming up. But yeah, at the end of the day, like we all recognise where we are in the league, and we know that we need to get results, and that is the most important thing. So the fact that we're going on a week-to-week basis, I don't think is a bad thing because we just need to face what's ahead of us at that time. And the common goal is to step our performance up as a group and to get points on a weekend. So from that perspective, nothing really changes.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll tell you what, I'm sure with your sports massage, was it? Course that you've done? Are you getting a lot of buy-in from players? Are you going to have to making extra money on the side?
Don't tell all the girls. I don't think they will know, or else I'll end up with a queue.
They don't know. Oh, no. Yeah, you're going to start a queue now. They know now.
Yeah. They definitely know now, yeah. It's like if somebody can plait your hair, you have to keep that quiet, or else you'll have a whole queue on a match day.
Yeah. So what are your goals personally for this, like this kind of season or this season for football? Now that there is an interim coach, has it changed? Like, are you still going to fight, or what are the goals?
Yeah, so nothing on an individual level really has changed. I still want to go and get as many games as I can personally each week. Obviously, as a player, you want to be playing, so that's important. I want to improve as a player each game as well. Each week, I kind of focus quite a lot on what I'm doing in training, and I like to think that I can develop as much as I can. And then from a physical point of view, I came back from an ACL injury this time last year. So it's been about 2 years now, like post-op. So I finally kind of feel like I'm back to like my previous level of like fitness and like pain management, things like that post-surgery. So I'm just kind of progressing myself athletically as much as I can and just trying to push myself in the gym as well. So yeah, it's nice to be in a place where I feel like my body is allowing me to do that, because previously this time last year, I was probably just going each week, making sure I was able to play rather than being able to progress. So yeah, it's quite nice to be able to feel like I'm actually, working towards something again.
That's great to hear. And then just a little bit, a nice little bit really is, do you have any tips for anyone that would be going into the same sort of scenario as you, trying to get to the professional level whilst also doing some undergraduate degree or anything academic, really trying to balance and do that juggling act? Do you have any, with your experience of juggling, do you have any tips for anyone?
I'd say, David, I thought you were laughing then. I would say my advice for anybody doing both studying and playing and things like that is just to prioritise in the moment what you need to do at that time, and that might even mean taking a break from something if you need to. Like, don't put too much pressure on yourself. Like, it's good to have more than one thing going on at the same time, but obviously that can be quite hectic and quite stressful. So when I was doing my masters and I was injured and I was training or being there part-time, that was obviously crazy stressful for me from an injury point of view. And I found that sometimes I wasn't necessarily in the right headspace to be able to do the work that I needed to do. And it's just a case of letting the relevant people know that need to know that can help you. Like, it might be that you just take a break or extend one of your deadlines or things like that. If you need help, like, there's people that are there for you, particularly in a club environment and certainly in an academic environment. So, like, there's no real route that you need to go down, or I need to do my degree in 3 years and I need to be a pro footballer in the next 4 years. Like, everyone's journey is different, so just go with it and just, like, enjoy it.
No, that's awesome.
Basically, set your priorities, and then see that whatever you pick, that's what you're focusing on, and don't focus on everything around it. Otherwise, you'll be involved. Have communications, build those relationships, and then also be flexible with yourself.
That's it. Just be flexible. Like, you can do multiple things at one time. Like, I've worked 2 or 3 jobs and played professionally and done a masters. Like, you can do it.
That's
it's just like give and take. And
and
it's carnage.
Oh, it's nuts. And I do want to get into that, just maybe even for 10 minutes, and maybe not, women football as a whole, because I don't think we'll be able to do that justice in 10 minutes. But even just like in the context of Sheffield, because the team made a big step this year, if I'm correct, moving to the big field of Bramall Lane, correct? Right. So that's a huge step, I think. As far as I see it, you could tell us more if it is or not. But for you, definitely. Where do you see that club going, and what needs to happen, both like for viewership or for within the club, for your team to be able to take the next step of going from a part-time team to a full-time team? Like, maybe what do people inside, what needs to change, like, internally in the club, and what can happen externally for it to keep moving forward?
So it's obviously women's football is on a massive kind of climb at the minute and progressing at a rapid rate, which is fantastic to see, and particularly off the Euros as well. There's been a massive upsurge in interest in the game, which is what's fueling this kind of acceleration of it, if you like. There's a lot more interest, a lot more people wanting to come and watch. There's a lot more young girls wanting to play. Parents are now taking kids to all girls teams because they now know that they're available for them, things like that. And with that, the professional game is also developing at the top level and throughout the whole pyramid. So where we sit currently in the championship, Barclays Championship, as a championship side, we want to get promoted into the WSL, which is the top division. So that's our main focus, but that's also the focus of every other club in the championship right now. So it's quite competitive, and it's still a case of people, clubs, if you like, investing in the game. And I think the word investment gets thrown around quite a lot, but what that means is it allows the athletes to perform and become the best athletes that we can be. And it means the club environment is the most professional that it can be. And, you don't have to go and work multiple jobs on the side and turn up to training tired and travel 2 hours to training, all these things that come with it, with the part-time model that I think people maybe underestimate or don't necessarily know about all the time, can take its toll. And when you're an athlete trying to get to the top of your game and you realise that actually I've not had enough sleep, or actually I've just trained till 10 p.m, but I've got to be up at 5 for work in the morning, things like that. It's just silly, and that's where the game's at right now. That is where it's at. But with more investment means that, the club can support athletes better and the players better, and hopefully we don't have to do those things. And the girls coming through in young years will be able to step into a full-time professional role and not have to like work alongside playing.
Yeah. And from an external point of view, like fans and people coming to games or thinking about coming to games, or even kind of in grassroots, what can people external to the club do you think to help in that promotion?
Yeah, it's just, I think
I guess that's $1 million question. So
it's a tough one. Yeah, I think it's on us to perform at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? If you're a Sheffield United fan and we're losing every week, then that's not that attractive. So yeah, we want to like advertise the game in a positive way as much as we can, and that's us as players, that's us as role models, that's us as Sheffield United. We can, advertise the game as much as possible and make it accessible to as many people as possible. The fact that we're at Bramall Lane this season is a massive step and a massive driver in that as well. So it's a great move from the club as a whole to say, look, Sheffield United fans, here's your Sheffield United women's team. If you can't get to a men's game, can you come watch the women's team play? Can we do double headers? Can we, advertise it in a way that's attractive to people? And it kind of hits a different demographic of people as well. We've found like the women's game tends to appeal to a lot more like families and younger people and things like that, in comparison to the men's game. So it's not that you're necessarily saying, you want all Sheffield United men's fans to come and suddenly switch and be the women's team fans. It's not what you're asking for. It's just a case of, here's the sport, come and give it a go. If it's not for you, fair enough. If it is, then you know where we are. And the fact that we're at the main stadium now means that it feels a lot more inclusive for us as players, and probably from a fan's point of view as well. So it's a big question. I want to leave that one to marketing and media and stuff. But yeah, it's nice. Like, we've seen the fan bases have grown massively, and the support we've had. Like, we hit, I think 11,000 people came down to watch one of our games just before Christmas at Bramall Lane, which was unbelievable, and that's a league record.
And that just makes it so much more fun, doesn't it? Like, in a big stadium where just things look cool. As an athlete, it just makes it fun. And then when the stands get filled up as well, and maybe what you made a good point there, where it's like, it's not that we're trying to get all the fans from the men's team over to watch the women's as well. And you mentioned as well, like the maybe the target audience of women's football is different, and just finding that target audience of people that would really be into watching and supporting.
Yeah, I think like the important thing has been up until now is people struggle to say, yes, there is an interest in women's football. That has been the biggest question. Are people bothered by it? Do they want to even watch it? But for me, that's not even the question anymore, because we've just seen the record attendances that we've hit in the Euros, like a higher attendance for the women's Euros final than there has ever been for any men's Euros final. You hit 97,000 people in Camp Nou watching, games abroad, and Arsenal, Chelsea, Tottenham, women's teams are all getting massive attendances at like the Emirates and Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, things like that. So it's not a case of, do people want to watch women's football? Because clearly they do. We just need to keep it accessible and keep marketing it well. And obviously the results and the actual product itself is important. But as more investment comes in and the standard of players gets better and becomes more professional and more elite, so does the game and the actual physical game that you're watching as well. So it kind of goes hand in hand. But yeah, the Euros have just proven that there is a huge interest in it. So it's just about capitalising on it and keeping that interest going, really.
Do you think there's a little bit of, sorry, Matt, I'm going to sneak in there. Do you think there's a little bit of pressure of, because obviously not all teams are full-time, and there's some full-time teams and some not. Do you think that step of some teams now going full-time puts pressure on the other teams of like, okay, we need to be moving that,
definitely.
In that direction as well?
We've seen, like the teams that have gone full-time, if you look at over the last sort of 3, maybe 5 seasons in the Championship, teams that have been full-time in this division, they've been few and far between. So you had Man United 1 year, Tottenham another year, Leicester the season I joined, Aston Villa as well. And they're the teams that have been promoted into the WSL, because against the other teams in the division, they do have the advantage. Players are eating, sleeping right, they're training more, they have more contact time, more opportunities to develop when they're not tired from work, and the list could go on. But at the end of the day, that is their profession, and they are therefore favourites to win the league against a team where people are only part-time. So that's a huge factor in terms of them being favourites and actually getting that promotion. But now that more teams in this league are now full-time, it's a hugely competitive league. And there's only one promotion spot as well. So, from a fan's point of view, it makes it a really great watch, because you couldn't call going into each game who's going to win, because you wouldn't know. But equally, the teams that are not sort of progressing to that full-time model, if you like, ourselves, I think possibly Sunderland, Blackburn, Coventry, there's a few teams that are kind of hybrid within there. It's just becoming harder and harder to stay at the top end of the table or to progress out of the league when you're competing against teams that are full-time. So, yeah, it's not to say that's an excuse, but it is a genuine factor that it is a bit of a challenge, I think. And that's going to happen as the game keeps moving. Yeah, yeah, it does make it difficult. I wouldn't go into any game against a full-time team and kind of thinking, do you know what, they're full-time, therefore we're not expecting to get a result. That's absolutely not the case. And I don't think full-time necessarily defines that you are going to be top dog, in the division, because you just can't tell. However, it does give you a massive advantage over the course of the year. And I think as more teams do become more professional, it kind of is noticing a lot more.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with what you said earlier. I was having a look at the games and the table, really, and it is quite exciting. You're not sure who's going to win. You're not sure. Nothing's set in stone, really. And I was just wondering, when's your next big game? The one that everyone's looking forward to. Is it the next game this weekend, or is it there's one that's on the whiteboard, already planted there, already planning the whole strategic element of it?
Well, where we're at the minute at the table is not our favoured position. So at the minute, every game is a massive game. We've got Durham away this weekend. So a team that's close to us in the table, physical team. Durham is probably the hardest place to go for an away game. And I'm pretty sure nearly every team will say that. Very physical place to go. So that's a tough one for us. And then we're back at home at Bramall Lane. We've got Charlton after that. So every game is competitive. Every game is a chance to get 3 points. And that's just how we look at it at the minute. So there's no real standout games at the moment.
Yeah. And then I saw you got London City top of the table as well. 5th of March.
That's it, yeah.
Should be a great turnout for that, yeah. No, I mean, it just seems exciting. And once David and I can somehow meet up and get ends to meet, we'll definitely come down and watch, and we'll be shouting from the stands.
Nice.
But yeah, no.
That would be so much fun. We'll be the first people to get kicked out of a game.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, Ellie, I'll get David to. Yeah, I was going to say I'll teach David some of the terminology.
Yeah.
So where
soccer, right?
So I'm not embarrassing myself. Is that the coach down there?
Is that the trainer?
Yes.
The soccer trainer?
That's right. Yeah, going to a soccer game.
David brings his cleats down for a bit of filming as well.
Yeah. Where's the ice? Where's the ice?
But yeah.
Funny.
It was great talking to you. It was an amazing, just an amazing story to hear from the beginning, how everything you've had to come through, everything you've had to deal with, and the stresses that can be imposed on someone trying to go through your journey, really. And then also just to enlighten, and I mean, David said this a million times, and I have to agree with him massively on this, that we weren't able to cover everything in one episode. So there will definitely, hopefully in the future, be a second part where we can just dive in deeper into the women's game or into the injuries that, as I'm not sure about, but I think David and you know.
I think that's a whole new podcast, that one. That's a whole separate one.
Yeah. We're going to start a side podcast where we just have Ellie talking.
Yeah.
And we'll just throw questions at her.
But yeah, it's part of the game, isn't it? So it's you just get on with it. It's part of it. So
yeah. There you go. And I think, David, rapid questions?
Oh, do you have some?
Of course I do, mate.
This is the best part of the podcast, Ellie. You got 5 or 6, depending on how generous Matt's feeling, rapid questions.
We'll go 5.
Good.
We'll go 5. They're a proper nice ones. All right. Are you ready?
I think so.
Okay. First one. Do you have your own Netflix account, or do you use somebody else's?
Oh,
I use someone else's.
Nice. That's
I use
difficult
my
now that they've
brother's.
stopped the sharing button, isn't it? Oh, nice.
Yeah.
What is your guilty pleasure?
My guilty pleasure. I'm going to stick on the topic of films. I love Harry Potter.
Oh, nice. That's a good one. What is your
Yeah.
go-to karaoke song?
The first one that just popped into my head there was Sweet Caroline. It's probably not even the one.
No.
That's so football.
I've just got football in my head right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Even I know that as a foreigner.
There you go. And then, what was your last impulse buy?
My last impulse
Trainers.
buy. It probably was trainers, yeah.
New cleats.
Yeah.
Nice.
It actually was, you know.
Nice. And then last one, a bit of an insight into you. What is the cringiest thing you did as a teenager?
Oh, God, as a teenager. How young are we talking? Like, just anywhere in my teens?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
God. Cringiest thing. Oh, I don't even know. That's so boring. I can't even think of anything.
I've got too many to choose from.
Yeah, there's that many. What did I do?
We're gonna have to ask your brothers that maybe.
I don't know. This is pre-teenager. So this is when I was like a kid. I used to love Avril Lavigne. So
Nice.
you know the singer. So I used to like dress up, and she was kind of like my inspiration in terms of my outfits. Even when I wasn't like dressing up like as a kid, I'd kind of like the whole style that she had going on. So that's that.
Nice.
Love that.
Hopefully,
do you still dress as Avril Lavigne for Halloween then?
No, I don't. But I do quite like putting her playlist on in my car. I'm not gonna lie.
Nice.
Get the throwbacks on.
There you go. That's a pre-game playlist then.
Yeah.
She would feature in it. There you go. Thank you so much for coming on.
No worries.
Yeah,
Thank
really,
you for having me.
really appreciate it, Ellie. That was fantastic.
No, I'm glad to do it. It was good talking over stuff. I like it.
Well, there you go, David. I'll tell you what, that was a great interview. I mean, straight after that, I'm already thinking like, what can I do different as an S&C coach? What are my flaws that she mentioned in that chat? And it was just amazing to see also how I could relate to her in terms of trying to juggle a master's with placement and how she's juggling, well, not obviously to her degree, because she was just juggling a master's and professional sport. How do you even do that, David?
I know. Honestly, that was incredible. Just to hear her story of not only through football or academics, but both. And we didn't even touch injury. And I'm so excited to be able to get her back on to talk a little bit about that. But even that, with just so many nuggets that, like you said, you can take away, you know, whether you're juggling sports and academics and trying to, you know, prioritize what's important to you at that moment, or if you're like yourself, an S&C coach, you know, trying to get better. I think being able to hear from an athlete who's also been a trainer on both sides was so incredible. And yeah, just see like what's important, and to hear her say also of how important, you know, communication, building relationships, you know, making sure that you show that you value people, and that's actually what's more important. Because I think often like at those high level athletes, we think like, oh, just like how with their performance on the field, that's most important, right? Which obviously is, but to hear from an athlete, it's like, no, it's important for me that I know that they value me, you know, and to build that relationship was honestly unbelievable. I hope that everyone who listens to this enjoys it. If you did, we would love it that you share it. If you're on YouTube, you know, hit subscribe, comment what you thought. What was your favorite thing? What did you take away? What do you have any more questions for Ellie? Because we're hoping to get her back. So if you have questions for Ellie, you know, toss them, either DM us, put them in the comments below. If you're on YouTube, you know, show Ellie some love. Go follow her on Instagram and Twitter, because we really appreciate her giving us her time for that interview, because it was absolutely amazing. Matt, do you have anything else to add?
I think if I did add anything else, it would just do it injustice. It wouldn't help at all, because just go listen to the interview, and I'm sure you enjoyed it like we did as well.
Yeah. Well, on that note, Matt, why don't you take us out? Episode 21. We'll see you next Tuesday.
This has been the RSS podcast. We're out.